On January 8, 1815, General Andrew Jackson leads Americans to victory in the last battle of the War of 1812. The War of 1812 was fought between Britain and the young United States of America. Much of the motivation for this war came down to Americans wanting to uphold the nation's sovereignty and vindicate its honor. Keep in mind that the War of 1812 was happening at the same time as the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. This created huge trade opportunities for U.S. merchants, who were, naturally, selling goods to both sides. In response, Britain issued a series of decrees known as the Orders in Council to limit American trade with its enemies. Britain then used its powerful Royal Navy to enforce them. A key aspect of the decrees was that Britain claimed the right to search and seize merchant ships bound for French ports. In the process of searching American vessels, Britain also practiced impressment, meaning they would go beyond simply inspecting U.S. ships and force these American seamen into the chronically undermanned British Navy. Another factor that led to the war was Americans' desire to expand settlement into Native American, British, and Spanish territories. Many in the U.S. also aspired to conquer Canada and thereby end British influence in North America. Britain scored a major victory in the conflict in August 1814 when it captured Washington, D.C. in an amphibious assault and proceeded to burn several federal buildings, including the White House and the U.S. Capitol. But a few weeks later, in September 1814, U.S. forces gained a crucial victory on Lake Champlain in upstate New York. This hastened peace negotiations that had already begun in Belgium a month earlier, led on the U.S. side by future President John Quincy Adams. The Treaty of Ghent was signed on December 24th, but of course word didn't make it across the Atlantic in time, and British forces attacked New Orleans in January 1814. However, French pirate Lafitte had warned the Americans, and they were ready, with Andrew Jackson and 4,500 troops in defensive positions. 7,500 British soldiers attacked. They made 2 assaults. Both failed. Some of Jackson's forces were U.S. Army regulars, but most were militiamen, including Kentucky and Tennessee marksmen, Louisiana and Mississippi volunteers, and even Choctaw Indians. The British suffered over 2,000 casualties, including 285 dead. On the U.S. side, there were just 62 total casualties, with only 13 dead. Of course, the Battle of New Orleans had no bearing on the outcome of the War of 1812, but it was big for national pride. It elevated Andrew Jackson to legendary status, leading him to run for president the following decade. The victory also lived on nearly 150 years later with Johnny Horton's 1959 #1 hit song, The Battle of New Orleans. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1790, in New York City, U.S. President George Washington delivers the first State of the Union address. In 1918, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson outlines the 14 Points, his plan for lasting peace after World War I. In 1935, singer and actor Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, is born in Tupelo, Mississippi. In 1947, musician David Bowie, whose stage name comes from an American frontiersman, is born in London. In 1992, U.S. President George Bush vomits on Japan's prime minister and faints from gastroenteritis. In 2000, the Tennessee Titans win an NFL playoff game on a trick play dubbed the Music City Miracle. In 2011, 6 are killed and 13 are injured, including a U.S. Congresswoman, by a gunman in Tucson, Arizona. And now, it's time for our Today in History quiz. Apple bought out which desktop MP3 player, leading to the development of iTunes? Fubar 2000, SoundJam MP, Winamp, or Songbird? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right tomorrow on Today in History.